Hey everybody, welcome into the HUBCast. It is Tuesday, October the 4th, and we're rolling along into round two of the chase with Max Harnett and Russell Wenrich. I'm Adam Alexander, and let me start off by saying that no one's hotter in NASCAR than Martin Truex Jr. We all agree on that?
Yeah.
The guy is on an absolute roll, and if circumstances had been just a little bit different, we could be sitting here today talking about Truex sweeping the opening round of the chase. Would have been only the second time a driver had pulled off the sweep, all right?
Joey Logano being the first.
Right, he did it in this round two, the round of 12 1 year ago. Now, having said that, and paying off that Martin Truex Jr. is on fire, Russell, I mean, you've been on fire yourself. You picked both of those wins, am I right?
That's correct.
So you, in a sense, who'd you pick at New Hampshire? Do you remember who you picked
I
at
think
New Hampshire?
Harvick, but I don't really remember.
No, you didn't pick Harvick.
So you'd say he might be hotter than Martin Truex Jr. If not as hot.
But when it comes to this time of year, right, it's all about delivering in the playoffs.
Right.
And we made our chase bracket picks, and, well, you had three of the four that didn't advance. You had them advancing. I mean, that.
You only had two wrong, right?
I missed two.
I missed
and
two.
You missed two. And
you missed three.
You missed three.
I had my sentimental pick of Tony Stewart just didn't work out.
He didn't work out. Yeah.
And Kyle Larson gave Austin Dillon a Christmas present, so that hurt me as well. So.
Hey, now, okay, so that race, I think last week we all kind of agreed, and I can't always remember what we talk about, but we all kind of agreed that the 12 that were going to Dover above the cut line, we felt like probably, if you were a betting man, you would bet on those 12 that would be the dozen coming out, right? I mean, that's how we all felt.
I was on the wagon of that. I thought somebody would fall out. I just didn't know who it would be or who would jump up. That was kind of my thought.
And I was kind of like you in that conventional wisdom said those 12 will move on based on how they're running and the track we're competing on and so on. But knowing how Dover tends to shake things up, you got to believe something's going to happen, and it did.
Yeah.
Jamie McMurray has the engine problem, which killed his opportunities of moving on, and certainly the electrical issues, the tire problem, and Kyle Larson, before you know, it's 5 or 6 laps down, and they lose their 5-point advantage, and they don't move on. So I look at the 12 that have moved on, and I want to go through that group, and I want to play a little game with each one of them. Are you confident? Are you cautious, or are you concerned? Let's start at the top with Martin Truex Jr., who's the number one seed going to the second round based on his performance in round one. Where are you guys with him? I mean, we all agree confident, right?
Confident.
Yeah?
Confident.
And are you confident based on what he's done because he had such a successful first round, or are you confident based on the tracks we have in round two and what he's accomplished?
Both.
A little bit of both? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, round two set up better for him than round one did, and round three probably sets up pretty well for him as well. I mean, 2.5-mile tracks with Charlotte and Kansas, especially Charlotte being another night race. You know how dominant he was there. The fact that he was that dominant as he was in round one, confidence is very, very high.
Are they just now getting what they deserve? Because I think they were this good early in the year. They just had a number of circumstances where things didn't go their way, maybe self-inflicted, whatever. Are they finally getting the payoff that they should have been getting throughout 2016?
Yeah, that could have easily been their 8th or 9th win this year. So when you look at what happened to them earlier in the year, and it could have been like one of the greatest seasons we've seen out of a driver.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, especially when you look at the laps led, which is the stat that really blows me away when I look at their numbers. 4 wins this season for Martin Truex Jr., had 3 in his career coming into 2016. Next guy on my list is Kevin Harvick. Confident, cautious, or concerned? Where are we at with him?
I'm in the same boat, especially with a win in round one, and I just think they've had a lot of speed all year. He's right up there with Truex in terms of the speed they've had all year. I haven't been confident.
You confident?
Confident, absolutely.
And you know what? Here's the thing for me. With Kevin Harvick, I think until he proves me wrong in this format, I'm going to be confident. Because even when we have seen him in those desperate must-win situations, that's when the 4 team seems to be at their best, when they really elevate their game. We're all confident on him. Defending champion Kyle Busch, confident, cautious, or concerned? Where do you go with him?
He's in my confident category again. I think we saw how fast they were at the beginning of this year. We talked about we were debating how many wins he'd have this year. We thought he could get close to double digits, and he didn't get there, but I still think they have a ton of speed, and they showed through the first 3 races of the chase that they continue to have that speed.
Early in the year, I think he was probably the best, right?
Oh, yeah.
And now they seem to have, I won't say they've taken a step back. I would say
Sure.
maybe the 78 has taken a step forward. But still, when you analyze their overall, you got to put them in the confidence category, right?
Yeah, they're still top 3 guys. Like that's why he's third in points, obviously. So they're still in that top 3 range.
All right, I would put next on the list of guys that we're going to analyze Brad Keselowski. One, he's right there with Kyle when you talk about wins in the regular season, but then also 3 consecutive top 5s in the chase. Are we all confident on the 2 of Brad Keselowski that won the championship in 2012?
Yeah, I split my drivers. I split them up 4 in each category that we're hitting here, and he's my final confident driver, especially with Talladega being in the second round. Nobody's better than him right now at those plate tracks. So yeah, confident for me.
Yeah, I think these next 3 tracks set up perfectly for him, especially coming off with the momentum he has from the first 3 races.
And here's a guy that's never been to the championship 4, been to the round of 8 2 years in a row, but unable to advance on to the championship 4, and appears to be in as good a position to get there. Either one of you have Brad in your championship 4? You guys?
I think I do.
Yeah, okay.
I did not.
And I did as well. Let's move now to a couple of other guys from Joe Gibbs Racing. We'll start with Matt Kenseth. Of course, won the championship in 2003, has not won a title since, been so good since going to Joe Gibbs Racing. Where do you rank Matt Kenseth in his opportunity?
I'd say I'm a little cautious for him, but I don't think it's overly cautious. They've had speed. They had a speeding penalty at New Hampshire, and so I think that was their only hiccup in this round.
He was right on the edge of being confident for me. I thought they had a good first round, pretty quiet first round, but I thought they looked pretty solid. And going to 2 mile-and-a-half tracks here with Charlotte and Kansas, I expect him to be pretty confident in this round. But I have him as cautious just because they weren't as fast as some of those other guys we had up the top.
He's a hard guy to play this game with, I think.
Yeah.
Because Matt Kenseth is such a different personality. And I think his crew chief, Jason Ratcliffe, is the same. These are guys that just fly under the radar. They're very quiet. If you go back to the early portion of 2016, a lot of people were pushing the panic button on the 20 because they had just had a series of problems. It looks like he's going to win the Daytona 500, and that doesn't pan out coming off of turn 4. He gets shuffled out of the draft and finishes outside the top 10, I believe. It ended up 12th or 14th, something like that. The big issues at Atlanta where he had the miscommunication and got black flagged and wasn't scored for a period of time. It was just one thing after another. And then he finally won at Dover, and he said, well, he's in the chase. We don't have to worry about him anymore. And I feel like since then they've had speed and gone about their business very quietly. I, too, would put him on the very north side of cautious, but probably teetering on confident. Next up, we go to his teammate, and I would go to Denny Hamlin. And I realize if you're watching on one of our video spots here at Facebook Live or YouTube, I might be going out of order in the way we have our 12. But let's go next with Denny Hamlin. How do you feel about Denny, who really came in with a ton of momentum, was so good in the big races throughout the regular season in 2016, and now we a little bit hard to analyze coming out of round 1.
I have him in my concerned category, and the reason I put him there is
not just cautious, but concerned.
But concerned, and the reason I put him in that category is because they're a lot further off from where they were than I thought they'd be at this point. I didn't necessarily expect them to come in with the same momentum they had to finish the regular season, but I did expect them to be faster, especially that New Hampshire race really did not go well for them. And even in Dover, I didn't think they had a particularly strong race. So I was a little concerned out of what I saw out of the 11 team.
What do you think, Russell?
So I think they're just below Kenseth in that cautious category. Like, especially going into these next 3 races. These are 3 good tracks for him. You look at Restrictor Plate in Talladega, he's run really well there. In Charlotte and Kansas, their mile-and-a-half program, I'm not too worried. You look at New Hampshire and Dover, what we just came off of, those don't really relate when you go further on here.
So I would put Denny Hamlin in the cautious category. I'm not confident, not near as confident now as I was. I had him going to the championship 4. Certainly still think he's capable of doing that, especially if he can get through this round. Because I think the track set up so well for him in the round of 8. Martinsville's been good to him. I think he can deliver at Phoenix, and he's won multiple times at Texas Motor Speedway. And Russell, you just talked about the strength of the mile-and-a-half program at Joe Gibbs. I do think, though, you want to do something to reestablish the momentum. I think they lost a step in that opening round of the chase. I think they need to rekindle that and be really good, obviously, as it would for anybody in this round of the chase to get a win at Charlotte or Kansas so you don't have to play any games at Talladega. Next guy on the list is someone I think we all had eliminated in the opening round that advanced and I think is given us reason to be confident. Don't know if he rates that with you guys, but I'll go first with Jimmie Johnson. And I will say that I'm confident in the 48. I did not believe that coming in, obviously. I felt like they were a little bit of a mess down the stretch of the regular season. And I think on top of them being a little bit of a mess, they didn't have speed. All these teams are going to go through periods where they make mistakes, okay, beat themselves a little bit. The one common thread we've seen year in and year out with the 48 is they have speed to get it done. They didn't really have that for a while, and I was really concerned coming in to the playoffs. After 3 races, they've made a believer out of me. They had a couple of mistakes. Jimmie had the speeding penalty at Chicago that may very well have taken him out of an opportunity to get a victory there. And certainly the guys coming over the wall too soon on Sunday at Dover hurt him because he ended up having to make the pass-through penalty and losing a lap. But the speed is back, and that gives me confidence in the 48. And I think they are ready to pounce. So good on the mile-and-a-half at Chicago, 2 mile-and-a-halves to start off the round of 12. Confident is how I label the 48 of Jimmie Johnson.
I have them in my middle category, cautious. But for me, it's cautiously optimistic. I agree with you. They showed a lot more speed in that first round than I thought they'd come in with because I didn't have them advancing. But for me, it's that cautious of like, we're heading to 2 mile-and-a-half tracks as the first 2 races in this round. The Joe Gibbs racing program, Toyota in general, has been extremely strong on the mile-and-a-halves. Kevin Harvick, even Kurt Busch was fast on those mile-and-a-halves. So I pumped the brakes a little bit just knowing how good the competition is.
I agree with Max, and you look at the last 5 races, he's had a problem in 4 of those of some kind. He has a problem in this round, it could be really bad. Mm-hmm. Like the first round's okay to get away with a problem.
Especially when you come in with some bonus points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they helped themselves in the bonus points category because not only did he have 6 coming in with his 2 regular season wins, but he led the most laps at Chicago, so he's going to pick up a couple of bonus points there. When you're able to lead laps and add up those bonus points, that can be a big difference, especially in the opening round.
Yeah.
Let's go now to the other driver from Joe Gibbs we haven't talked about, Carl Edwards. Here's a guy that early in 2016 to me was solidly in the confident category. As the season has gone on, he's probably gone back and forth between cautious and confident. And I would say now, as I start looking at my bottom 4 of these 12 and who I think could be in jeopardy of not moving on, I would say Carl is someone I'm on the fence with. So I'm going to put him down in the back half of the cautious category, middle of the road for me. Where are you guys at with the 19?
I have him in my concerned category. And
you are concerned?
Mostly because I had him in my final 4. And it worries me after what I saw in round 1. I do. The only hope I think I still have is going into Charlotte. I think will be a good barometer of where they're at. I think getting back to the mile-and-a-half program will help them with confidence a little bit and have some speed. And then I think the 3rd round actually sets up well for them. So I'm concerned, but I haven't given up hope on them yet. I have them moving on.
I'm concerned as well, just because that's a high-level team that didn't perform in the first round. But you look at these next 2 tracks for him. Charlotte he's really good at, won there last year in the 600, and then his hometown track of Kansas, he wants to win there more than anything. So, and then Talladega, nobody really knows what's going to happen there. But I would say concerned as well.
And Carl spent a lot of time at the front in restrictor plate races. We know he's capable. No one would be surprised to see him go to Talladega and win. But he is one of those elite drivers that has done it on so many different occasions at so many types of tracks that has never picked up a win at Daytona or Talladega. The 22 of Joey Logano. Here's a guy, he kind of like his teammate. I mean, if anybody delivered quietly in the opening round of the chase, it was Team Penske. And gosh, I was really worried about Joey after practice at Dover. I just thought, man, this team is putting themselves in an uncomfortable position. But you know what? They came out and they delivered. And they have seen this year, just when you're about ready to write them off and say you're concerned, they do something to breathe some life back into the program. I'm not going to go confident, but I will go cautious with him. There was a time when I was a little bit concerned. I'm cautious right now. I still don't think they have the speed that they need, and so they're having to play some games to overcome that. But he swept this round a year ago, and we know how capable he is, much like Brad Keselowski, of delivering at Talladega. So I'm going to say highly cautious and bordering on confident for the 22 as we go to the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they have the speed, but they have enough speed, and he's a talented enough driver to get it done.
I have in my concerned category simply because of that speed, and I think they've kind of gotten away with it a little bit in the first round of not having that speed. They found a way to make it up with strategy and playing it right. My concern is that with losing 4 drivers after the first round, it gets a lot harder to hide that lack of speed. It gets a lot harder to make it up with a strategy call, and that concerns me for that 22 team.
All right, I'm going to go with the last veteran, another former champion in Kurt Busch, and then we're going to save the 2 Chase rookies as our last 2 to analyze. Kurt Busch, confident, cautious, or concerned? Russell, why don't you lead us off on to 41?
Concerned. They just haven't performed.
Period. That's it.
Yeah,
you're right. I think they've fallen off a little bit.
I'm in the exact same category, concerned for Kurt Busch.
And I'm going to put him in the cautious category for this reason. When we were going into the playoffs, the one guy that I thought had a chance to make some noise that not a lot of people were talking about was Kurt Busch. And the reason why, if you look at those 6.5-mile races in the regular season, they had a better average finish than anybody, even better than Martin Truex Jr., who was so dominant and led all those laps. Those numbers don't lie. You can't just go out and manufacture week in and week out good runs at what you could argue is the most difficult kind of track we go to because so many elements come into play. If they can somehow rekindle that with the opening races in this round being at Charlotte and Kansas 2.5-miles, and despite the fact he's never won a plate race, Kurt is one of the best there is when it comes to Daytona and Talladega. I think this team has what it takes to advance. I agree. There's no reason to be confident at this point based on what we saw in the first 3 races of the chase. But for me, it's not concerned. It's cautious for the 41. Now let's go with those 2 first-timers. Let's start with Austin Dillon. You know, Kyle Larson said that there was a Christmas gift delivered from Chip Ganassi Racing to RCR and Austin Dillon because they had such a bad Sunday at Dover. I will say this, though. I think the 3 team went out and did an unbelievable job of earning their way. Did they get some help? Absolutely. But that's part of what this game is about. When they were given help, they took full advantage, and you could argue had one of their best races of 2016. And I say easily, they earned their way into the round of 12. How do you guys break down the 3-car?
Oh, I agree. I just don't know if they have the speed or talent to go to the next level.
Yeah.
But I didn't think they would do that well at Dover either. So.
I'm going to take the 3 and the 24 and kind of roll them into one here. I put them both in my cautious category simply because they've already outdone what I think expectations were for 2 rookies coming into the chase. They advanced through the round of 16, and now it's totally house money that they're playing with. There's no reason for them to be worried or concerned or any of that. For these teams, they're probably putting themselves in the confident category in terms of how they feel after getting through that opening round. They've said, man, I feel great after getting through that opening round. I would caution you to put them into the next round, but I think it's really good for these teams in the spot that they are. They can go out there and play.
I could be wrong. Russell, you can correct me here, but I think average finish for both Chase Elliott and Austin Dillon at Charlotte, Kansas, and Talladega in the spring, if you take those 3 races in the spring and average their finish, both of them averaged, ironically enough, a 7th place finish in those 3 races across the board.
That's pretty good.
I know it to be true for Austin Dillon. I think the same for Chase Elliott. You know what? If you do it again, you're going to move on.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the numbers say it. And last year, you and I were talking about this, Russell. The average finish was actually higher to move on from round 2 to round 3 than it was round 1 to round 2. And we all know that's just the impact of Talladega being the cutoff race. So we've broken this down. We've talked about all 12 drivers. Now I want us to kind of collaborate here and break down our bracket, move from 12 to 8. Give me an automatic. Who's your first automatic we know is advancing, Max?
78. No
78.
question.
All right. Russell, automatic.
18.
You say 18. I will say 4. Do you guys have anybody else on your list of automatics? No brainer that's going to move. You say the 2.
I say the 2 moves on.
You both agree on the 2. Is there anybody else for sure you're confident in that moves to the round of 8?
20.
The 20's on the edge for me. He'd be my next guy I'd put in, but I'm not nearly as confident about the 20 as I am about those first 4 guys.
22. What about the 22?
I'm
Not
hesitant.
a for sure.
Yeah.
I think he
Okay.
moves on, but I wouldn't. I think he moves on.
48. These are I think these guys are all about in the same category, right? 20, 22, 48. I mean, you guys put them in the same category. Any one of those, you say for sure on the 22.
Yeah.
You say you're not sure on the 22.
Yeah.
But you like the 20.
I like the 20, and then after that, I'd probably put the 11 moving on would be my
Before
next.
the 48.
Yeah, just because of the 1.5 speed that
How
we
do
saw
you feel
earlier
about
this
the
year.
11 of Denny Hamlin, Russell?
I like the 11 as well.
All right, then I'm going to move the 11 on. So we've got 5.
What do you think?
The next guy that I would move based on history is the 22. I would move the 22 next. Okay?
I'm fine with that.
So there's 6. The 20 and the 48 are on the board. Can we get a second nod for the 20 or the 48? Does anybody?
I'll give a nod for both.
You'll give a nod for both, and are you okay with moving them or no?
I'm good with moving the 20.
You're
Wow.
good. All right. So let's do this then. We got 3. We got a handful of guys left here, and only 1 spot to fill.
So who do we have in right now?
So we've got Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Matt Kenseth, Denny Hamlin. So we don't have Jimmie Johnson. We don't have Carl Edwards. We don't have either one of the first-timers. That would be Chase Elliott and
Kurt
Austin
Busch.
Dillon. And we don't have the 41 of Kurt Busch. And where does this argument come down to? We were talking about the 48. There's a decent amount of confidence there. And I think he would be my next guy. The 48 would be the next one that I would move, which would leave out Kurt Busch, Carl Edwards, Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon. Can you make a case for any of those other 4 beyond Jimmie Johnson? Who fits best? I mean, let's face it, the Toyotas have been strong all year. And there was a time when we said that we could have 4 Toyotas at Homestead,
Yeah.
maybe the 4 Gibbs cars at Homestead. I think we've tapped the brakes on that conversation a little bit now because we all kind of believe Martin Truex Jr. is the guy and will be one of the representatives. But what do you think about Carl Edwards?
Carl Edwards would be the guy
I
would move him on ahead of Jimmie Johnson.
ahead of Jimmie Johnson?
Yeah.
What about you, Russell?
See, I don't disagree with that totally, but I would put the 48 in over
Okay.
him if it was solely up to me.
And I would vote for the 48. So I wrote our numbers down. So here, based on our quick analysis, we've got Martin Truex Jr., no surprise, going to the round of 8. Kyle Busch going to the round of 8. Kevin Harvick to the round of 8. Both Penske cars, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski. We added a couple of more Toyotas and Matt Kenseth and Denny Hamlin, and the 48 of Jimmie Johnson.
I
And
can't wait till you guys are wrong.
So the 4 we think will go home at Talladega are
Kurt Busch, Carl Edwards, and the 2 first-timers. That would be Chase Elliott and Austin Dillon. And something tells me, while we didn't include them, something tells me either the 3 or 24 is going to go to the round of 8.
I think the 24 could win this weekend.
I think the 24 could win Saturday, too. I really believe that. You and I were talking about this last night. 9 times the driver's gotten his first career win at Charlotte. The 1.5 miles have been great for Chase Elliott. They had a couple of hiccups this year, but they've run good at all of them. Nearly won Chicago a couple of weeks ago. Don't be surprised if that 24 does some things.
And of those 9, 2 of them were Hendrick guys.
Absolutely. Casey Mears was one of them, and Jeff Gordon obviously being the other.
In the 24 car.
In the 24.
I think he'll have a good run. I don't know if anybody comes close to touching the 78 Saturday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Okay. We got about 5 minutes left. Let's go open up the phone lines. Is that what we call this segment? CJ, do we open up the phone lines here?
Nobody calls anymore.
Oh, we don't call anymore.
We'll make it open up the tweets.
We have dial-up internet though.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what that sound is in the
What kind of
background.
questions are we getting today?
So I wanted to say thank you to everyone for submitting questions today. We did a teaser video before we went on.
Which I thought was, I felt really good about our teaser.
It did what, 47 seconds of solid Adam Alexander. It was nice.
Well,
That's about as much as we can all handle.
You were in there.
A little bit, just the voice.
Well, but it's a good voice.
It does break
Well,
it up.
I appreciate that. But there were a lot of good questions asked today. So Warren in Florida.
Warren.
He said, should Sprint Cup drivers set up their car for a night race or a day race with Hurricane Matthew moving
You
in?
had to ask that question, didn't you? You saw how red-faced I got in the pre-show.
I wanted to,
when
absolutely.
What in the world, CJ?
Don't waffle on your answer
All right,
here.
Ben, can we renegotiate CJ's contract for next week? He's going
I
way
love the
outside
question.
the lines here.
More than one social guy.
So,
Not on Tuesday.
all right. How about confidence, cautious, or concern on Hurricane Matthew? How confident are we this thing is going to – obviously, it's not going to be the hurricane, but we're going to feel the impact of the hurricane. Confident, cautious, or concerned?
I'm going all three. I'm confident it'll hit us, and you should be
Taking caution.
take caution
Take caution.
outside.
And you
be
have enormous
concerned
concerns?
about the race being on time.
Yeah, I tell you what, the reason I like working with you guys is you're both bigger smart alecks than I am.
Zero chance.
No, so here's the thing. We were joking before we came on, and I said it's Tuesday, and why are we getting so excited about the weather on Saturday? And everybody, around Charlotte seems to think this thing is going to happen.
Because it's a hurricane. It's not just a storm.
I know, but hurricanes have been known to turn off the coast and go, out into the ocean, and we don't even live on the coast, okay? A little geography lesson. Charlotte, Concord is not on the coast of North Carolina. But having said that, to Warren's question, who's in Florida, who probably does have
Warren's
tremendous
probably more concerned
experience
than we are.
with hurricanes, okay? And
So what does he
please
think?
be safe, Warren.
Warren didn't give any input at all.
I think when you look at practice times, practice is during the day.
Yeah.
This weekend. So these teams, you should have a good opportunity to get a baseline on where your car is going to be in case you're running on Sunday afternoon. You agree with that, Russell?
Yeah, unfortunately I do.
And this race last year was rained out on Saturday night and moved to Sunday afternoon.
It was.
So, yeah, I think teams will do it. And let's face it, these crew chiefs, they're good at this stuff. And a lot of what they do is guesswork because they don't always practice at the time they're going to race anyway, which is what the schedule calls for this weekend.
Yeah.
So, good question. We hope the hurricane doesn't hit. And if it doesn't, I'm going to remind some people about it. But anyway.
See, now we have it on video.
That's right. Way to go,
to
CJ.
confirm
Way
that.
to stir the pot.
Amy in Nevada, she said Sunday morning's Xfinity race in Dover was fun and entertaining, even without Cup drivers. Do you think NASCAR is considering at least limiting the number of lower series races Cup drivers can participate in?
They have.
Yeah.
They've taken some steps in not allowing them to race at Homestead. If you were chasing,
you're no
into
longer
last year.
eligible for the championship.
Absolutely.
Which is something that's changed in recent years. I do think we're working in that direction. And I think it's something that's important to NASCAR. I think the fans have spoken. I think NASCAR has heard what they've said. I don't think it's a decision you can make overnight. There's just way too much involved from a sponsorship perspective and the commitments that these teams have to running Cup drivers to maintain the cash flow that they need from those sponsors to keep the teams up and running. So NASCAR can't just come in and say, we're going to do this and it's a hard and fast rule and we're going to start this weekend at Charlotte. But I do think we're slowly working in that direction, and I agree. The trucks don't typically have Cup drivers, and there's great racing there.
Yeah.
We saw it on Sunday because the Cup guys that were entered typically, for the most part, elected to not run and focus on the Sprint Cup race.
Did you like that?
I
The
thought
doubleheader.
I did like the doubleheader, and that's where I thought she was going with the question.
But it did limit the Cup drivers in there.
Not only did it limit the Cup drivers, but and we can't do it every week. But I thought it was pretty cool to have a little mid-morning, Sunday, Cup setup with an Xfinity. I liked it. Now, I don't know how all that translates, and our executives that are watching this may be saying, what's that idiot saying? We can't run our Xfinity coverage at 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. But I thought, from a fan's perspective, it was nice to sit at home and have a day of NASCAR.
And she's in Las Vegas, or Nevada, the West Coast.
Yeah,
so
she was up early watching that. Yeah, it's a good point.
And then one more, Dave in South Carolina. He wanted to know, when qualifying is rained out, why is the lineup set by owner points instead of points in the chase?
And yeah, Russell, you've been following that, so you answer that question.
Good luck.
Well, I can answer it.
Way to put me on
I
the
can
spot.
answer it, but I don't. You'd have to correct me if I screwed something up.
Go ahead. This is my best part. This is what I do best.
Well, we had changed that rule but at only 2 tracks, and it was Daytona and Talladega, where we were using owner points. And the reason was, one, to protect the teams, because they didn't want teams being left out, because basically practice speeds were going to be setting it in that scenario, okay? And we didn't want practice speeds setting the grid at Daytona and Talladega. And I think what was realized through all of that was you got a real chance of taking a team that doesn't have a charter, right, and them getting left out in the chase. Am I right in saying that?
So that was the reasoning, was because say Ryan Blaney made the chase, and then they would set the grid off of practice speeds, and he wasn't fast enough, then he would have went home.
Right.
But she's also saying, I think it's a little different, her question possibly, that Brad Keselowski started first.
Oh.
Even though we think Truex and then Harvick are at the top of the chase grid.
Right.
So basically the reason for that is that they go by just points scored, not finishes.
Not automatic advancement.
Because Brad finished top 5 in the first 2 races.
Right.
He had accumulated more points, despite the fact that he had not won.
Yeah, Harvick didn't have a great first race. Truex didn't have a great second race in terms of finishing position.
And so owner points put him in front of him, and that's and owner points have dictated that for years, because you don't want to penalize a team if they don't have the same driver in the car.
And then it goes further. It's confusing, because now when we reset to 3,000 points, but even though Keselowski had scored the most points in those first 3 races, he's shown 7th. Now that's because they go by number of firsts, seconds, thirds, and fourths, fifths, sixths, and so on. So everybody that's ahead of him had a better finish in the first 3 rounds, first 3 races.
Yes. So, hey, and here's the deal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're 1 or 12.
They're going to be
Everybody's
the top,
got 3,000
12,
points,
so.
and we're going to put them in the bag and shake them up, and they're going to all be different when we leave Charlotte anyway.
But if qualifying's canceled, do you look for the 78 team to win again? Because they won the last 2 times.
Yes.
We didn't have qualifying.
Darlington and Chicago.
Correct.
Yes.
No,
all right.
Well, yeah, and now it's 3 in a row.
If
because
qualifying
of Dover. Because of Dover.
yeah. And if qualifying gets rained out this week because Hurricane Matthew, I got to go home and put boards on my windows. Thank you guys for being here. It's been lots of fun.
Hey, one more. Robert was the first to ask. Picks for Charlotte.
Picks for Charlotte. All right, I'm going 24 Chase Elliott.
78.
78.
All right, watch NASCAR Race Hub Monday to Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see you next
Matthew.
Tuesday. Check your local listings next week on the HUBCast. We're working on some schedule issues, but we'll see you back here soon.